DeVoe from Third Party Podcast. Today I'm here with a seat at the table. A Seat at the Table is a nonpartisan organization who focuses on civic engagement and voting. I'm here with my co-host today, Chelsea Cox, who is the founder and CEO of A Seat at the Table.
Hi, Chelsea Cox. As DeVoe said, I am the founder, CEO, and executive director of A Seat at the Table, which is a nonprofit organization geared towards civic engagement and voter encouragement.
And we will be talking with Judge Samantha Williams. The Honorable Samantha Williams is a judge on the Court of Common Pleas in Philadelphia. In 2023, she was appointed by Governor Josh Shapiro. Now she serves in the criminal section. She's a proud Philadelphia native and Temple University graduate. Judge Williams began her career as a prosecutor and later helped pass major justice reforms while working with City Council. Her work has earned her the 2022 Distinguished Leader Award from the Legal Intelligencer. Judge Williams.
Hello. How are you?
How are you?
And how are you?
Good.
Good. Thank you for having me.
So we're gonna kind of just talk about what you do.
Okay.
Talk about why it's important and why like regular people like me should just care.
All right.
All right. So normally we kind of, before we get in deep, I want to kind of lighten it up a little bit.
All right.
So I got a couple questions for you.
Okay.
What is a hidden talent that you have?
A hidden
A hidden talent. Nobody really know about it unless they really know you.
God. A hidden talent. Okay. I mean, I cook. I don't know that a lot of people who don't know me outside my courtroom know that about me. But one of the things that I love to do, especially during the NFL season, is I make a new dip every Sunday, trying a new recipe. It's like my big thing. I'm a little superstitious, so I feel like if I don't make the dip, the Eagles will lose. So, you know, just based off of what happened last season, I really carried the team.
You won't get a lot of votes for that.
I really carried the team.
Eagles fan carried the team.
Every Sunday.
Yeah.
Okay, without fail.
So what are the dips? Don't say hoagie dip either.
Okay, well, you know, my husband is from Delco, so hoagie dip is one of the dips in the rotation. But buffalo chicken is the best dip that I make. That's what everybody loves. But I do a little rotel dip. I've done cheesesteak dip.
Okay.
Done jalapeno popper dip. Like, I just pull dips out of wherever. Just so my team wins. Okay?
Committed to the team.
Go Birds.
Go Birds. All right. So you're a judge now.
Yes, I am.
But what is the worst job you ever had?
Okay. All right. The worst job I ever had, I actually worked at a cupcake shop or bakery. And I got fired within like 72 hours.
Why'd you get fired?
They said I was complaining too much, asking when the break was, why I had to stand all the time, why things had to be done a certain way. So it really didn't work out.
So what was your role? Like, what was your role at the cupcake shop?
You know, a cashier, just a regular employee. I would check people out. I would wrap up the boxes. But, you know, I got fired before the week was out. Wow. They couldn't deal with me. So I knew I had to take a different route in my life.
That has to be like some type of record.
It might be.
Yeah. I never heard somebody getting fired because they complained a lot.
Before the probation period was even up. Yes.
72 hours. That might be a record.
You know, advocating for workers' rights. Like, we deserve breaks. We deserve not to be on our feet all day, you know? I thought that was important, but clearly not to them. So.
All right. So, what motivated you to become a judge?
That's a great question. And I want to take it back on that question all the way back to the beginning.
Okay.
So my dad was a lawyer. He's recently retired, but he was a lawyer. He did civil rights work. Really just community minded and community focused.
Okay.
But when he was starting off, you know, he really didn't have a lot of money to pay for a babysitter. Right. So he was just taking me with him to court.
Oh, wow.
So I really grew up in the halls of City Hall, which I know is something that a lot of people do know about me, but I don't think they understood how early it actually started. So I would sit in courtrooms. The court staff would watch me all day. And I would get to see my dad in action, but I would also get to see the judges in action. one thing I was always impressed by is these judges got to tell my dad what to do. Like the only person in the world who got to tell my dad what to do. So that's what first piqued my interest. But honestly, the more I got to learn about the judicial system, the more I got to see that these are really the people that are making very, very important decisions about people's lives. And I thought it was important that there be more of them that reflect the Philadelphia community, which is not something that back in the day when I was a baby in those courtrooms, you wouldn't see someone like me there. And so that's really what motivated me, wanting to be a part of the system, knowing how important the process it is, and wanting to just add myself to the change.
So I'm gonna throw two statistics at you, and you tell me what they mean.
Okay.
Black women judges at the federal level, 3%, and at the district court level, 5%.
Well, I mean, I'm honestly surprised at that it's that low, but I certainly believe it, especially at the federal level. You know, this is Philadelphia, right? So there's a higher chance of you running into someone that looks like you or I, just based on the population. But I imagine that everywhere else, that's not the same, right? And that's why it's important to encourage people who might not otherwise think they have the opportunity to really take their shot at this. The more representation that you have in any field, the better the result is going to be, because what you're getting is a different perspective, right? You're getting all of these different perspectives. And what you don't want is to end up in a situation where everybody thinks the same, right? Everybody has the same opinion, or no one has any diversity in opinion.
Now, you did mention, like, when you started, you piqued the interest when you were younger and you wanted to be a judge. But you also started off as in the DA's office.
I did, yes.
Talk about what transitions you're thinking from, okay, I want to start off and be a DA versus I want to just go straight into being a judge versus going to like corporate law or going to like a mergers and acquisitions law.
So the way I grew up, I knew I always wanted to work in public service. And so I did spend my entire legal career before becoming a judge working for the city of Philadelphia in public service. I saw starting off at the DA's office as a way to protect my community. That's how I viewed it originally. And I did enjoy the work I got to do. I enjoyed the trials I got to participate in. But in terms of that original idea of me being a prosecutor protects my community, that wasn't always the case. I'll just say that the district attorney's office hasn't always been as it is now. Okay. And so when I got there and when I saw some of the things that were occurring, it was some things that I didn't want to contribute to. But one of the reasons why I did want to start there is because I'm from this city. I was born and raised here. And the people that live in this city are important to me. And so I sought out to protect the victims of crime. And that's where I started there.
So as a prosecutor, was it, you mentioned crime. Is it violent crime? Was it like shootings, or was it just like maybe misdemeanors or robbing?
It was really across the board. At the district attorney's office, you start with lower level crimes when you start, and then you work your way up. So drug cases, gun cases, cases where people were assaulted, even retail theft cases, all of which again are important to the safety and protection of our city. But it was really also the best place that you can get trial experience. So the district attorney's office and the public defender's office are the two starting points for most attorneys. And you're just in court every day. You're just getting that very valuable experience. So I do not regret my time in the DA's office at all. And I think it was the perfect starting point for me, because then it allowed me to open my eyes to some of the other areas of the system that I could contribute to.
But I guess you would be considered, and I'm saying this for clarity, a trial judge.
Yes, I am a trial judge.
So
I'm specifically assigned to the criminal trial division of the Court of Common Pleas.
So as a trial judge, how do you see your role in building trust between communities and the justice system?
That's a very good question. And it's really important because it's something I deal with a lot. I see my role in building trust by publicly doing the right thing, even when it's not easy to do. And as an example, we get cases every day in a trial court. A lot of the cases are won at the motions level. So at the motions level, you'll see something called a motion to suppress filed by defense. What that means is that the defense is arguing that the police did something that was unconstitutional, and so we shouldn't even make it to the trial level. This evidence should be removed from the case because of the unconstitutional actions of the police. And how you build trust with the community is taking those motions very seriously, applying the law correctly, and ruling exactly how you should in the protection of someone's constitutional rights. Whether or not you ultimately believe that person committed a wrong, or know that at trial that person would have been proven to be guilty, your sole focus is on what the police did. And so I have an example case I just had last week, actually. An officer made a traffic stop of a car in Fairmount Park at about 3:30 in the morning. It was a rental car, a very nice rental car. There were 4 African-American occupants inside of the car. The officers are allowed to take people out of the car during a traffic stop and ask them questions. But they're not allowed to prolong the stop in a way that then ultimately becomes unconstitutional, right? If you run a red light, I have to start that conversation about why you ran the red light, but then I can't just go on a tangent into something else unless I establish that there's sufficient other basis to believe there's another crime happening. This cop got on the witness stand and testified that he called for a canine dog based on the fact that the driver of the vehicle, that the car was too nice and that he had $5,000 in his pocket.
Wow.
Dang, you just came from the casino.
He could have came from anywhere, but the point is none of that matters.
Right.
Now, they did recover a gun from the car, but I had to throw that gun out as evidence based on the officer saying that that's why he prolonged the stop. That's unconstitutional.
Yeah.
And I already know what it was. He said he prolonged it. He did what he did because the car was too nice and he had too much money. And what he meant by that was that person was too black to be in that situation.
Because if it was a different person of a different color, it wouldn't even have been a thing.
Exactly. And so that is the thing that you have to do. And you'll have those officers sit there and look at you and stare at you when you make your decision. But I was elected by the people, and I'm not going to betray the law, and I'm not going to betray the community. And so you'll have to make those decisions. And that's how you build trust. When people see that, okay, she's going to do the right thing when it's time to do the right thing. But, you know, sometimes when you cooked, like, right? Like, so, building that credibility, you know?
Where does that moral compass, because that it's a lot, right? Because it's people that'll hear that. And like, it's you know, I'll be blunt, it's African Americans or black males that'll hear that and be like, man, they was up. Like, they'll be like, yeah, I know that the way they got it was unconstitutional, but he was in the wrong. So where do you, like, how, like, because that's, you know, that's refreshing to hear. And it means you have to have a strong sense of like moral like, where does that come from?
You have to remind yourself every day that I took an oath to uphold the United States Constitution and the Pennsylvania Constitution. And I was also elected by over 200,000 people who trusted me to do the right thing. Wow. That's what I have to remind myself every day.
200,000, 200K.
But, you know, I have to remind myself that these are the people who entrusted me, right? And you're talking about trust. They trusted me, and now I have to show them that I earned that trust back, okay? So that's what it's all about. I had a lot of people ask me about that case, but they found a gun. And I said, it doesn't matter that they found the gun. The actions leading up to them finding the gun was wrong, and that's it.
Now, adding on to that, and just kind of adding on to the sense of building trust with the community, do you feel like your background as an African-American woman comes into play when you're making these decisions? I mean, you said, yes, you want to do what's right based off of what you're taught and based off the promises that you made to the community. But is there ever an instance where you're like, adding on to what DeVoe said, like, I'm black, we know what y'all was probably doing with the gun or what not with the gun. I have experience with other cases that I've been through or other people that I've represented where they were presented with hardcore evidence that could have put them away, but because the law is the law, I have to go by one side versus going by the other. Is there ever an instance where you're lived experiences comes into play.
Absolutely. I mean, this is what this is all about, right? When I tell people, like, when we're talking about justice, it's always going to be through the lens of your own lived experience. That's why having people who have different experiences is mostly important. I know there's some of my colleagues, to no fault of their own, who might have never been the subject of a traffic stop at all, who might have never felt they were in the position to feel distrustful of the government just by way of their upbringing or their background. So I take all of that with me, you know, as someone that grew up in West Philly, as someone who had a Black father raised in Southwest Philly. I take all of that, my own personal experience, my community experience, and then I have the lens to see through certain things to understand why they ended up how they did, and in my courtroom.
What is one thing about being a judge that most people don't realize?
Well, I don't think most people realize how isolating it is. So
Explain that.
when you become a judge, you know, there's just certain things that you can't do anymore just because of the rules of judicial ethics. So there's certain events I can no longer attend that I could before. There's maybe even certain people who don't want to hang around me anymore because of my position. Maybe there's certain people you don't want around you anymore because of your position. And also, even inherently how our work is set up, like, we don't get to see each other as much as colleagues. Even some of my colleagues, we're in our own courtroom every day, doing our own caseload, and it's a lot. So it can be a little bit isolating. And I don't think people know that we carry that with us as well.
And Court of Common Pleas, that's all criminal cases? So that's shootings, murders, theft?
So there's a criminal division and a civil division and a family division in the Court of Common Pleas. Okay. I'm assigned to the criminal division, and I'm assigned to a specific team. So we're all on different teams. My team handles felony trials where individuals have waived their right to a jury trial. So they're asking me to make the sole decision in their case. And I handle a variety of cases up until felonies of the second degree. Felonies of the first degree go to another team. And then on Fridays, I'm on a special team that does domestic violence and sexual assault cases as well.
So are you the one that, you obviously give the final say, but you're sentencing people to jail?
Yes.
And if yes,
sometimes, yes.
Okay. So what are the facts?
She like, all she do is convict.
No.
She said, you sentence people to jail.
What are some of the factors that you're implying into the convictions?
Into sentencing?
Yeah, sentencing.
So there's actually things that we are mandatorily required to consider as a part of sentencing. And we can get reversed just on not considering certain things.
So what's like the top, like, start the higher, what's the hierarchy?
So first you're going to consider any evidence that was presented at trial, right? Yeah. Anything that came in at trial and whether that met the elements of the offenses, right? Once you make it past that, you'll consider the person's prior record score. So there's actually a calculation of a score based on if that individual has a previous criminal history, really how bad that criminal history is based on a score of 0 to 5 and then some extras. You also consider sentencing guidelines that the state sets out for us.
Right.
That'll give us a range based on the prior history and where we are today. You also consider a lot of other things like community support. Right. That's very important. I don't think people realize how important it is.
So when people is like, yo, man, I need y'all to come down to the courthouse, or like that matters.
That definitely matters. Okay. Because it lets us know that if we give this person the opportunity to be back in the community, that they have other people that are going to hold them accountable. So I've gotten sentencings where I've had 20 people show up for someone, and I've let that person know, you don't know how lucky you are that you had these people show up for you, because it shows me that there is someone out there who cares about you, and if they see you going back down the wrong path, they might redirect you. Right. I also consider someone's complete entire history. We get reports that tell us since you were born, what has happened in your life. We have individuals who come in front of us that have suffered from immense childhood trauma that we will consider as a part of the sentencing. You know, the things that they have had to deal with in their own life that might have caused them to make a mistake or commit a crime. So there's a ton of things that we have to consider. We have to consider if there was a victim, their rights and their statement and what they wish as well.
Yeah.
So you know, and I'm saying this as a newer, younger judge. What are
youngest currently?
You're the youngest current. Wow.
Currently.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's running out, but you know.
Like what are some of the challenges you face from both sides, you know, with you being young and having, like, looking young and stuff. So what are some of the challenges you face with being young and a newer judge?
Honestly, most of it's a personal challenge.
Okay.
The individuals that come before me, a lot of them are younger than me or my age.
Okay.
And so it's easy to see yourself in them and see what could have went wrong. Or just honestly, you know, carry that with you that, I feel immensely blessed that my life never took a turn like that, but seeing how easy it could be, seeing that the people across from me could be my very same age. I had someone went to my very same middle school, not at the same time, but you'll see that situation. And I carry that around, and I take that very personally, but I also think it's good that I have that different perspective, that I'm closer in age. I might understand some of the things that are going on out there. You know, technology is a big driver in some criminal offenses right now. Wow. Whereas social media wasn't around before necessarily. When I was growing up, I didn't have to deal with people coming at me on Facebook or IG or Twitter. Yeah. So I can
imagine some like old judge like Facebook. What's that? You know what I mean? Like,
I was thinking more of like a generational experience or perspective that you have, right? So you're, even though you didn't grow up in the world of like social media being prevalent, you're here now, so you do understand like the relevance of social media and what it could mean if somebody says something to you negative or nasty on social media and blast you out, and maybe that led to why that person is in court. Not saying it's a good reason or not, but you understand, you have that background. I think it comes from a different area of you adding to the law that you already know, but then adding that lived experience back into what your sentencing is or what your overall judgment is on the case.
Yeah. And you know, for the most part, I actually haven't been challenged or tested too much on my age, and it's because I do put in the work to make sure that I'm up on everything that's going on. I do my research. If someone presents me with new case law, I take it in the back and I read it before I make a decision. So I think that my age is less of a factor in terms of being able to be a good judge. In fact, I'll go as far to say I'm a great judge. But I do think it allows me to see certain things differently, just from the perspective of the individuals that come in my courtroom.
So I guess per quarter, give us like, how many cases do you think you see like per quarter?
Hundreds.
Yes. So, all right. So like you could possibly see like 100 cases in a month.
Yes.
Wow.
Nice.
So how do you,
I mean, not actually trying them to trial, but get it listed in front of me and dealing with certain matters with them. Yes, absolutely.
So how do you handle that pressure of all of those cases impacting all of those people's lives, you know, and possibly, not all the time, but possibly in like negative ways?
I'm not gonna lie, it's stressful sometimes. You know, I try to, like I say, in the moments that I feel stressed or overwhelmed, bring myself back to a moment of gratitude.
Right.
And just remember that I'm not here by accident. You know, there's a reason and a purpose for me being here, and I just have to always be focused on that. It's a lot to manage and handle, but that's why when we go through the judicial, even election process, we're questioned a lot about our ability to manage caseloads, our ability to manage high stress situations, our temperament. Because a lot of times, improper temperament can come from just a judge being tired or stressed out.
So with the number of cases that you try, and you're newer, and I can imagine what some of the older judges, how many cases they try. How do you feel like as a trial judge, or as just a judge in general, because you don't see a trial, your experiences combat some of the larger justice issues like mass incarceration and racial disparities within the courtroom?
So I feel like my particular assignment is good for me because since I'm dealing with felony 3 cases, felony 2 cases in Philadelphia, those cases are what are seen as the lesser felonies compared to everything else we got going on, which means I have the opportunity to do more in terms of being creative with sentencing or working with people,
like
right?
alternative sentencing programs.
Exactly.
Okay.
So I really like that about my current assignment, even though it can be a lot. Like on Thursdays, what I do is I bring anyone who's in my supervision in on Thursdays and we do a check-in. And I think that putting in that effort, like the extra effort with people, letting them know that you care goes a long way.
Can you explain what you mean when you say in your supervision?
Okay, so if I sentence to someone and to probation, right? Some judges take a different philosophy. They don't check in with their probationers unless something bad were to happen. We get notified if they get a new arrest or they're violating their probation in some way. I took a different approach proactively. I always bring my probationers in at least 3 times after their sentence to track their progress. And I like to do that because they know I'm serious then. So they know that when they mess up, I'm going to be on it. So if they do well, I'm also going to give them that praise for it. I've had people come back on Thursdays and bring me their GED certificate that they've gotten or be really excited about their new job. And I've had people come back on Thursdays that they didn't do well and maybe I had to, give them a break and take them off the street for a little bit so they can think about what they had done while they were in the community. But I have the flexibility in my role as a bench judge to do that and the time to do that. And I think starting off that way is just going to make it a lot better for me in the future. In terms of how it goes to some of the other issues that we have in the city, as you explained in my intro, I also have background in city council where I worked on those issues about reducing our prison population. So that's always in the back of my mind. Does this person really need to be in custody, right? Can this person have a chance on the street? And even when someone messes up, does that person need to go back to custody just because they had a mess up? Or is there something else that we can do to work with that person?
So do you feel like you, and I guess each judge is different, but they have divergent programs and alternative sentencing options. Do you feel like you make like good use of those?
So I do. In terms of the diversion programs, many of the diversion programs are at the discretion of the district attorney. But I do like them. And I do always, I'll bring someone up. If they get offered a diversion program, I'll explain it to them. And I'll tell them, try to comply with the terms of the programs. A lot of the diversion programs, the district attorney, upon completion, they'll withdraw the charges against the person. Okay. So that's a big deal. Yeah. As opposed to having to go through the trial. I think when it's appropriate, it's a great idea. Alternate sentencing, again, when it's appropriate, it's a great idea. I always try to use probation as a first effort if a person has a minimal record or no record. If there's some issues, I will then move to house arrest and see how that person can do on house arrest. Programming, okay? Even let your sentence be, get your GED. Right. Go to a program. Some people need parenting classes, anger management. Like there's so many opportunities we have to explore when it's a lower level crime. And so I definitely appreciate those opportunities being present.
Do they give you guys input with these programs? Like, do you get to, kind of help give ideas or facilitate or,
facilitate the actual program. First of all, shout out to ARD, okay? My business out there, but it's out there, so shout out to that.
ARD is everyone's favorite. But sometimes we do and sometimes we don't. But what we do get the opportunity to do is also connect with community programs that might not already be on someone's radar.
Okay.
So I know I've had people come into my courtroom, tell me they have a program, ask if they can sit down with me and speak. And then based on what I hear, I can use that program within my sentencing. So
I'm like very blown away because super kudos to you with the fact that you are using these alternative methods to think through how people can change and adjust and actually be productive citizens of the community without just throwing them in jail.
Absolutely.
And I think having these types of conversations is even more important because we're about to come up to this election, and having an idea of just judges sitting on the bench that have just different philosophies and that are actually willing to take different routes other than what has been traditionally done. Because you'll see judges or you'll see people just talk about their experience and however long their experience is, but that doesn't always necessarily mean that they're going to be the change that us voters want to see. So that's really dope.
No, it's refreshing, and like to hear,
really,
and you know, we appreciate you and your service and your work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I take my job very seriously. Like I said, I'm so grateful to be here. And so I just want to do the best that I can. And I hope that I've been doing that, and I hope that people see that.
Now, did you make history by being the youngest judge?
I wasn't the youngest ever, just the youngest right now.
All right, we'll take that. We'll take that history. You're the youngest right now. Yeah.
So, you're still having to deal with like adversity while you were running, I'm sure, because like the age thing probably just gets thrown around, and you're black and you're a woman and all the things. So I'm sure it's just not good.
All right, so I got one for you.
Uh-oh.
What's your courtroom walk-up song?
Dreams and nightmares. I used to pray for times like this to shine like this.
Okay, so you actually know all the words to it.
Oh, I can rap it completely. I will not be doing that here, but I can rap all of it.
All right.
All right.
That's dope. That's dope. Little Philly love. Eagles fan, Andrew. All right, so we're gonna do some rapid fire. We're gonna try this.
Okay.
All right. Judge Judy or Judge Mathis?
Dang. I'm gonna have to roll with Judy because she's just always herself. Like Judy's always herself.
She boss.
Yeah,
she really is.
I'll be scared to go say something to Judge Judy.
I would be scared of her.
So this why I want to ask you. Like, what kind of rapport is in your courtroom with you and your staff?
Oh, everything's good.
Yeah.
So I feel like as a millennial judge, I handle things differently because since I was a millennial worker, I was big on please do not disturb my work-life balance. Please do not disturb my personal time.
Right.
So we have a good rapport. I think most of my staff are millennials as well. Or the generation below me.
Gen Z, yes.
And we try to keep our courtroom as light as possible.
Okay.
So even the simple fact of saying hello and good morning to someone when it's their time for trial is really important. And it kind of sets the tone that, hey, she's not mean, she's fair, she's being respectful, and everybody deserves that. So we try to have a good time, as good of a time as you can have in criminal court.
You know, like listening to you talk about it, it's a lot of different skills that, you know, like from being a lawyer to being a judge that you have to acquire, like leadership and perspective and like vision. So it's, you know, like people think it's just you trying cases, but it's managing the staff, it's managing yourself, like the mental health part. So it just sounds like, you know, like it's more than just getting in front of people and slamming the gavel.
I never use my gavel.
You never?
I think that's very aggressive.
That would be the best part of the job.
Listen, if they made me a judge, I would have one. If I was a judge, I would have bought one to this one. Like, hear ye.
I don't think I've ever used it. I'll just use my voice to try to control.
So what you do at the end? I thought you slammed the gavel to let.
I don't.
Know.
I actually have a little Law and Order button though up on my bench that I'll press sometimes when no one's in there.
And what does it do? Does it
go like ding ding?
I'm cracking up. All right, so SVU or Suits?
SVU.
SVU. Which one?
Right.
Ain't it like
no, Law and Order is the franchise, and SVU is
like Olivia and Stabler for life.
Yeah,
for sure.
Opening arguments or closing arguments?
Closings.
Early court or late court?
Early. Well, how early?
I don't. Late court.
You get in at 9:30.
Okay, because some people start a list at 1:00. I don't like doing that. I like to start 9:30 and go all the way through.
Okay.
Coffee break or lunch break?
Lunch for sure.
What we got? Surprise witness or surprise evidence?
I don't like surprises in the courtroom. But I guess if it was something, I would go with the surprise evidence.
Surprise evidence?
Yes.
Let me ask you something. If it was a family member that was coming to your court does it make it to you, or like how does that, or does it?
Well,
Okay.
I've actually had that situation
Really?
happen, unfortunately.
Cousin come in there?
I had my cousin listed on, I should not be talking about this, but I did have, unfortunately, my cousin listed in my courtroom. I've never met this cousin before, but he did abscond, and I did have to issue a bench warrant for his arrest.
What's abscond?
He did not appear for his trial. Okay. He's on the run. So I did have to issue a bench warrant for his arrest, but I also issued a standing recusal.
So you have to recuse yourself.
Yes, this case does not come back to me because I'm not eligible to hear it based on, I've never met him before, but I know that is my relative.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Not on the run. Can we?
Yeah, maybe cut that right.
Okay. All right. You got any more fire, Fred?
All right. So, which is more memorable to you? Your first day of law school or your first day on the bench?
My first day on the bench, for sure. Yes.
Yeah. You like remember that day?
Absolutely. I was so ready.
Yeah.
Like I put my robe on. It was crisp. I remember when the door opened and they said, "All rise." It wasn't hardly anyone in my courtroom, but it still felt good.
So wait, do you have to wear a black robe? Because I think some courts allow you to wear something. Okay.
So wait, no, I'm looking like that because I actually asked. So, when I first got appointed, I went to the administration and I said, "Is there any actual rule that the robe has to be black?" Because I couldn't find one. And they said, "There's no actual rule, but maybe you don't want to be the first one to try it."
So wait, what color was you going for?
I mean, I wouldn't have minded even a little navy blue.
Navy blue.
Like to switch it up.
Would be.
I thought you said like pink or something.
I mean, I wouldn't have taken it that far, but so no one's ever tried it, but there's no official rule.
Let me ask you this: is it like stuffy and uptight at times?
At times, because we can't control the temperature in our courthouse. It's just like whatever they set it at.
No, I don't mean. I mean just the overall. She's talking about the temperature. I mean the overall like vibe. Manners and just the vibe of just court with older judges. Like, is it like kind of stuffy sometimes? You like, we need to loosen up.
Or is
it
like
bit.
the Martin episode when he walked in and slammed his briefcase down?
I'll say this: every judge sets the tone for their own courtroom.
Okay.
And so I think people know that in general, I'm a little bit on the more bubbly side. I'm a little bit on the friendlier side. So they know when they come into my courtroom, it might not be as stuffy or as formal as some of the other courtrooms. But still keeping it professional though. And still you gotta, sometimes you gotta remind them not to cross the line. Yeah. But I do it in a nice way. So
last question.
Okay, go ahead.
What are some things, you mentioned temperament, but what are some things that people should think about when they're going to elect a judge? Like, what are some characteristics that an ideal judge would have in your opinion?
Experience. And not all of that experience is the same. Like in my election, I think I was a very different type of candidate because I was with the DA's office for 2 years and I went to city council, and you don't see that a lot. But experience can be valuable even in the diversity of experience, right? So that's the first thing you want to look for. You want to look to see who supports them, right? And how they would, I guess, distinguish themselves from that support once they're on the bench, right? Are they an independent person? Is that going to be a problem? Okay. And so for me, I know I was always very independent. So I know no one's going to pressure me into doing anything that I don't want to do in my courtroom. So you definitely want to evaluate their independence, their experience, their temperament, and what they've done in the community. Because that's a big thing. I don't particularly, care for people popping up in the community just for their own advantage. So what's their track record in a real neighborhood in this city, and what can people on the street say about them is also important.
That's a good one.
No, that is very insightful. What high school did you go to?
Creative and Performing Arts.
You went to Kappa. Wow. So shout out Kappa.
No creative talent, by the way.
You
That's
cook.
just
You give acting. Like, I feel like I could
That's
see you
what
in
I
like a
look
stage.
for.
Yeah, I could see you on a stage.
it never
like a
really
theater
worked out for
stage.
me.
I could see you doing it though.
I might try.
It's not too
I
late.
think you could.
Yeah.
Like a little
You could be
amateur
the judge actor.
stage, yeah.
I would
think
go
you do
see.
it.
I would get a Judge TV show if they ever let us have
I
cameras
could
in our
see
room.
you on a Judge
Oh,
TV show.
That
too.
that would be
I could see
interesting.
that,
You're
yeah.
young,
I'm just
like
making
all
a
that.
picture that, you know.
So, Judge Samantha Williams, we appreciate you. Kappa, right? Kappa, Philly's finest. One of the youngest judges as of late to be elected. We appreciate you. Rod DeVoe, Third Party Podcast with my co-host Chelsea Cox from A Seat at the Table. And we just got finished talking with Judge Samantha Williams.